In today's lesson, we'll learn how to solve two-step equations. In our first example, 2 times a number added to 3 is equal to 13. In other words, 2x plus 3 equals 13. What could the value of x be? Now, doing this with mental math would be pretty difficult. There must be a better way, and there is. Look at the equation 2x plus 3 equals 13. Look for the like terms. You'll notice that positive 3 and 13 are both like terms since they're just numbers. Like terms like to be together, which means I can move the positive 3 over to be with the 13, or I can move the 13 over to be with the positive 3. I'm going to move the positive 3 over to be with the 13. Generally speaking, you want to keep the variables and numbers on separate sides of the equation. When you move a term to the other side of the equal sign, that term becomes the opposite. So it's no longer positive 3, it is now negative 3. Let's simplify the right side of the equation. 13 subtract 3 is going to be 10. Next, I want you to focus on this number 2. What is this 2 doing to the variable of x? Well, it is multiplying. Therefore, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide this side by 2, and what you do to one side, you must do to the other side. Therefore, these 2's are going to cancel out. That just leaves you with the variable of x, and 10 divided by 2 is going to be 5. Therefore, x is equal to 5. In our second example, 5 times a number subtracted by 2 is equal to negative 12. In other words, 5x minus 2 equals negative 12. What could the value of x be? Again, using mental math would be quite difficult. There must be a better way, and there is. Take a look at the equation 5x minus 2 equals negative 12. Take a minute to find the like terms. You'll notice that negative 2 and negative 12 are both like terms since they're just numbers. Like terms like to be together, which means I can move the negative 2 over to be with the negative 12, or I can move the negative 12 over to be with the negative 2. I'm going to move the negative 2 over to be with the negative 12. Remember, generally speaking, you want to keep the variables and numbers on separate sides of the equation. When you move a term to the other side of an equation, it becomes the opposite. So it's no longer negative 2, it's now positive 2. Let's simplify the right side of the equation. So we're going to start with the number negative 12. And we're adding 2, which means you're moving to the right by 2 spaces. And you're going to end up at negative 10. Therefore, negative 12 plus 2 is equal to negative 10. Next, I want you to focus on the 5 in front of the variable of x. What exactly is this 5 doing to the variable of x? Well, it's multiplying, and the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we're going to divide this side by 5, and what you do to one side of an equation, you must do to the other side. These 5's are going to cancel out, which leaves you with just x, and negative 10 divided by 5 is going to be negative 2, since when you have a negative number divided by a positive number, that gives you a negative number. Therefore, x is equal to negative 2. In our third example, negative 3 times a number added to 2 is equal to negative 4. In other words, negative 3x plus 2 equals negative 4. What could the value of x be? Using mental math would be quite difficult here, and there must be a better way. Take a look at the equation negative 3x plus 2 equals negative 4. Try and look for any like terms. You'll notice that positive 2 and negative 4 are like terms since they're both just numbers. Like terms like to be together, which means you can move the positive 2 over to be with the negative 4, or you can move the negative 4 over to be with the positive 2. I'm going to move the positive 2 over to be with the negative 4. Remember, generally speaking, you want to keep variables and numbers on separate sides of the equation. When you move a term to the other side of an equation, it becomes the opposite, which means this is no longer positive 2. It now is negative 2. Next, I'm going to simplify the right side of this equation. So negative 4 subtract 2. I'm going to have to use a calculator or a number line here. So using a number line, you would start at negative 4. And since you're subtracting, that means you're going to move to the left. And we're going to move 2 spaces to the left, which means we end up at negative 6. Therefore, negative 4 subtract 2 is negative 6. Next, I want you to focus on the negative 3 in front of x. What is this negative 3 doing to x? Well, it's multiplying it. And what is the opposite of multiplying? It's dividing. Which means I'm going to divide this by negative 3. And what I do to one side of an equation, I must do to the other side of the equation. These negative 3's cancel out, which leaves me with just x. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 becomes positive 2. Why is it positive? Well, when you have a negative divided by a negative, that gives you a positive. Therefore, x is equal to 2.